IELTS Listening, version K0009. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation about Winsham Farm, a residential education centre. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, Winsham Farm Centre.
Oh, hello. I want to arrange a weekend away for myself and some people from work, and we heard about your centre. I wonder if you could give me some details.
Yes, certainly. We are a residential centre attached to a working farm, and we organise educational activities for those guests who want them. What else would you like to know?
The caller wishes to arrange a weekend away for himself and some colleagues, so option C has been circled. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, Winsham Farm Centre.
Oh, hello. I want to arrange a weekend away for myself and some people from work, and we heard about your centre. I wonder if you could give me some details.
Yes, certainly. We are a residential centre attached to a working farm, and we organise educational activities for those guests who want them. What else would you like to know?
Well, firstly, what kind of accommodation have you got?
We've got 8 rooms altogether, and we can sleep 38 at any one time. 3 of the rooms have got 6 bunks, and 5 of them have got 4 bunks.
Right, and what other facilities are there?
We have separate toilets and showers for each of the rooms. There's a large dining room and a large meeting room, which can be booked by groups in advance. But I'm afraid we had a flood in there last month, and the floor was slightly damaged, so unfortunately it's out of use just now. We've got workmen coming in next week. When were you thinking of staying?
In 3 weeks' time, the 28th of September.
Oh, it should be okay by then.
Oh, well, that's okay then. And what about food? Do you provide meals or is it self-catering?
We're very flexible. As long as you give us enough notice, we can cater for you. Or, if you prefer, you can just bring your own food and use the kitchen facilities. And some people prefer to eat out, which is also fine.
Fine. And I heard that your farm is organic. Does that mean that you only have crops and no animals?
It doesn't, actually. A lot of people seem to think that, but we do rear livestock as well. And so we have a wide range of food. Organic means it's all produced without the use of artificial fertilizers or pesticides.
I see. That sounds good. Could you tell me what sort of recreational activities are available, either at the centre or in the area?
Yes. Here at the centre, we offer farm tours. They're very popular. One of the farm managers shows people around and explains some of the principles of organic farming. And for any visitors who are really keen, he'll let them drive a tractor or feed the animals and so on. With supervision, of course.
I think a lot of our group would be interested in that. It'd make a change from factory work.
Well, if they fancy it, tell them to come prepared. Plenty of old clothing, especially footwear. It can be very messy and wet.
Okay, I'll warn them.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10 on page 3. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
And another type of activity we do is survival courses, but that's only for groups of 5 or more, and they've got to be acquaintances. They have to cooperate closely. These courses are very popular, especially with school groups, but adults seem to enjoy them too.
What do they involve? Things like map reading?
Well, not exactly. What it is, we've got a large area of woodland on the farm, and we run this course there. It's mainly about collecting food and water, lighting a fire without any equipment, that kind of thing.
This weekend could be hard work. What about the area around the center? What is there to do?
If you look at a map, you'll see that we're very well situated here. Our centre's about midway between the Exmoor National Park, which is very popular for hill walking, and the South Coast, which has very good beaches.
Are they both within walking distance?
Well, they're both a bit far, unless you're very fit, but they're only about 30 minutes by road. And there's also a cycle path, which starts quite near here, about 10 minutes walk away. You can hire bikes at the starting point.
What is there to do if the weather's bad? I hope it won't be, but you never know.
Yes, that's right. Well, on most Saturday evenings we show films here, and then once a month a group of local musicians performs in our meeting room. And then Sherborne is only 14 miles away. It's only a small town, but it's got a very good museum and an old abbey, which is well worth a visit.
Well, it sounds perfect for our purposes. One last thing. What about prices? I'm not sure yet, but there'll probably be about 15 of us.
We charge a standard £14 a head for accommodation, whether there are 10 or 20 of you or whatever, and about £7 for cooked meals, depending on the menu you want. Use of the kitchen facilities is extra, as is the hire of the meeting room. It depends really what exactly you want and for how many people.
Right. Well, I've made a note of all that, and I'll discuss it with the rest of the group. Then I'll get back to you with a firm booking. Can I do that by phone?
Yes, you can. But once you've made a booking, we would need a deposit within 5 days to secure it. Then you just pay the balance when you're here.
Oh, yes, of course. Could you give me the address, please?
Yes. It's Winsham Farm, Coteale Road, that's Cotehle, near Sherborne. And the postcode is SH12 1LQ.
Thank you.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2 on page 4. Section 2. You will hear a program on a student radio station. It describes the findings of a survey on vacation jobs taken by students the previous year. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16 on page 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Welcome to student life. It's spring, and many of you may be thinking about arranging work for the long vacation. So on today's programme, Roger Anwell reports on a survey we conducted into the pleasures and problems of vacation jobs. Roger.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, the first thing to say is that by far the majority of students we surveyed did just 3 types of jobs. All of these obviously had their advantages and disadvantages. Starting with stock taking in supermarkets. The thing that students said they enjoyed most about this job was the travelling. They were often required to go to branches to do their stock takes, and this was regarded as an interesting plus. The main negative, however, was that they tended to find the job tiring, with long hours spent on their feet and climbing high shelves. Now, one thing we did ask the students in our survey was whether they had any recommendations for other people taking on their job, and they said, perhaps not surprisingly, get good shoes. That's the only way you can keep going. Another job which lots of students did was office work, and the positive feature of this actually rather surprised me, until I remembered what a hot summer it was last year. Lots of students named air conditioning as the best thing about office work. The downside, which many talked about, was wearing formal clothes. Obviously, this didn't go down too well with students. The advice most people gave was to select a large office. That way you have more variety of social contacts. Otherwise, the work can get very boring. The third job, which had attracted large numbers of students, was as a theme park attendant. And again, I got a surprise here, because the big plus people talked about was good pay. It must have improved since my day, I must say. Anyway, the downside I did recognise, having to deal with difficult customers, especially in the heat when tempers get frayed. Not easy. And people said that it was a good idea to live nearby, because there's a lot of shift work, and you don't have to worry about transport at difficult times of the day.
Before you hear the rest of the programme, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20 on page 5. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
So, those were the findings from the survey on the most common student jobs. But not all student jobs have to be mundane and boring. One of the students who responded in our survey spoke at length about his amazing job as a zoo attendant. Peter Marshall had read about work opportunities on the zoo website and just went along with a friend to talk to someone in personnel. He was offered a job there and then, as easy as that. In previous years, he'd done singularly unexciting shop work, so he was very pleased to be doing such original work. He ended up working for just under 3 months, which was actually slightly more than he'd anticipated, and meant that he had to miss part of university term time. But he said it was well worth it, because he thinks he's found his future career path as a result of this experience. He loved working on the educational side, in particular helping young kids understand about the animals in their natural environment. He said it was the most intriguing thing he'd ever done. He tells us, though, that with final exams coming up, he won't be able to do any paid work this coming vacation, so why don't you apply? If you're interested in getting further information about the findings of the survey...
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3 on page 6. Part 3. You will hear a discussion between Fiona, who is the head of a college drama department, and a new tutor called Ed, who is preparing to run a voice coaching workshop for drama students. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Right, Ed. Well, I'm delighted that you've joined the drama department. Now, part of my job is to support you during your probationary year. So let's ensure that you're clear about what you'll be doing in the first voice coaching workshop you run next week.
Okay.
I'll be observing you working with the students as you show them how to project their voices on stage. I'll be evaluating how you cope with the practical activities as well as the theory. And if all goes well, you'll then have finished the final stage of your voice coach diploma.
That'd be great, Fiona. Anyway, I've thought through the workshop and I've done a plan to highlight the key areas I intend to cover.
Good. Let's look at your plan. Okay, so let's see. I'm glad you've thought about seating patterns. You say you want to begin with the students sitting in star-shaped patterns. That's fine. There are various seating patterns you can use at this stage. I like trainees sitting cross-legged in a circle. Other people like students in rows. But actually all these can be represented diagrammatically, which would be clearer than going into lots of detailed explanations like you've done here.
Oh, okay. But it doesn't matter which one I use at the beginning of a workshop.
It's whatever you feel comfortable with.
Fine. So, in the initial phase, I explain the objectives of the session.
Okay. Then in the first activity you say they should quickly rise, walk briskly around the room, weaving in and out to avoid each other.
Yes, I think it's important that they don't get in each other's way and that they learn to move within a confined space, aware of other people, but primarily concentrating on their own thoughts.
Absolutely. But in your plan, you've omitted to mention that in the second activity, you will get the students to pair off. So you need to rethink that section and include reasons why it's essential for them to listen to each other talking. Doesn't matter what they actually say. And at the same time, get them to think about their posture, because that governs their lung capacity and, most crucially, their breathing.
Right, will do.
Okay. Of course, a common issue in the UK is that we rehearse in small rooms, then transfer to a larger stage. So, bearing in mind that voice projection is not shouting, later in the course you'll need to work in a much bigger space.
Does it have to be an enclosed space? I suppose it does, because ultimately they're going to work in a theatre.
Ideally, an enclosed space, but there's no reason why you couldn't go somewhere outdoors. Although I'd avoid a very public space, like a park.
Right, thanks.
Now, your next activity on how to convey emotion on stage is fine, but your selection of texts for the students to experience emotional depth leaves a little to be desired. It's not enough to include a few extracts that you find enjoyable. You need to consider the different kind of emotion that each extract should present, from sorrow through to ecstasy. Classical stuff is all well and good, but include many more contemporary sources.
I understand.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, out of the 20 books you list, some are more useful than others, and I think you should flag up the disadvantages so that people don't waste money buying them. Take Vocal Instruction. I know I recommended it for you to read for its historical perspective, but bear in mind it was written 30 years ago, and it shows.
Yeah, agreed. I thought Improve Your Accent was interesting, but it's very narrow in its outlook, don't you think?
Well, I'm not sure it's interesting. And another one you need to warn people about is The Actor's Handbook. It's an expensive book, very useful, but according to the publishers, they're going to reissue it with new colour photos, and at the moment it's out of print. There aren't any second-hand copies out there, so tell them not to waste time looking for it.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
There's one more that I want to mention, and that's confident voice delivery. It exaggerates its claims on how to be successful to such an extent that I think it is positively misleading. But maybe I'm biased.
OK, I'll make a note of that, thanks. So the others...
That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to part 3.
Part 4. You will hear part of a lecture given to students in a food science department about safety standards. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. In today's lecture, I'm going to talk about food safety and the factors involved in setting standards for the food industry with particular reference to the situation here in Australia. Now, before anyone can decide what kind of standards need to be set for ensuring that any specific food product is safe, scientists have to carry out a risk assessment. And in doing this, they have to consider several potential problems. Firstly, they have to consider the ingredients of the product. They have to decide whether any of these might make the finished product more susceptible to harmful bacteria. Then, they have to consider the process used in the preparation of the food, and whether or not it includes a step designed to eliminate unwanted microorganisms. After that, they've got to consider the way products are stored, for instance in warehouses or cold stores, and distributed to retailers. And it doesn't end there. The analysts even have to be aware of problems that might occur after the food has reached the supermarket. Things like frozen foods being defrosted and then refrozen because the temperature fluctuated, or foods being kept past their expiry date. And finally, any assessment of the overall risk has to take into account the way the end users, consumers, normally handle food at home. So, as you see, the risk assessment is quite complicated. Now, there are several factors affecting what kind of food we eat, only one of which is legislation. Another is the attitudes of consumers. A good example of this is the dislike that many Australians have for additives in their food, even when these additives are considered safe, and without them products have a shorter shelf life or a substandard appearance. This has led to the phenomenal expansion of the market for organic food in Australia. Another important influence on what we eat is the food industry itself. In some large supermarkets, low prices are the main strategy for attracting customers, while for more upscale marketers, image is more important. But we should bear in mind, for all of them, the key consideration is profitability. Finally, there's the influence of the mass media, which is the most important source of information for most people. Unfortunately, this has a rather negative effect, because in general, they are not very objective. For one thing, the prime motivation of the media, as with the food industry, is sales, and this has a major influence on the way in which the topic is dealt with. A further problem is that news is regarded as a type of entertainment. Often, the issues that get a top billing are those that are sensational or controversial, so it's not at all surprising if the public ends up with a rather distorted understanding of food and food safety. On top of that, up till now, food safety and nutrition have never been considered a really interesting topic for the public. Very few TV or radio shows address the issues, and even those shows that are devoted to cooking or eating generally ignore them. At this point, I'll just offer a personal opinion on this subject of food safety. I firmly believe in food safety education, starting at primary schools. We know that many children who have been taught about the benefits of exercise come home and lecture their parents about it. So, the same could be done for food and food preparation. And at the same time, the countless educational television shows.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4.